With the release of the latest Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Teal Mask, it is time for another draft league. This is the PPL Flare and Bolt Division. Basically, a sort of D-League of the PPL. With all this change in the draft league scene, it also felt like the perfect time to get a new team name and a new logo. Introducing your Gigaton Hammer. Yes, it's just the name of the Pokemon move. I wanted something with Tinkaton and I couldn't think of anything better. Leave me alone. If you end up enjoying the video and are excited for more draft league content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a like on the video. Let me know what you think about our team. Now, I was actually placed 12th out of 14 teams, which I am perfectly okay with. I'd rather be towards the later end of the draft than just smacked in the middle. With this placement, I knew I wouldn't really be able to get any of my top 3 picks, which were Garchomp, Great Tusk, or Manaphy, so I just decided to wait and see what ended up getting to me. So when our pick rolled around, we ended up grabbing Greninja. Greninja has always been a top tier threat in Draft League due to its high speed, incredible move pool, mixed attacking capabilities, and of course, 3 great abilities. If you were wondering, yes, we do get access to both Protean and Battle Bond. Granted, both of these abilities were nerfed, but Greninja is still an incredible Pokemon. It can be supported with Hazards, a Breaker with Protean, a late game cleaner with Battle Bond. You can pretty much always find a reason to bring Greninja to a game, which is exactly what you want from your first round pick. I guess you could say the same thing for our second round pick, Mew. Literally everything I said about Greninja, you can say about Mew. This Pokemon is versatility incarnate, which usually ends up being its biggest downfall as well. Let's see if I can go ahead and put it to good use. Round 3 came around and there were still some pretty big threats on the board. Now, every time I join a draft league, I aim to use as many new Pokemon as possible, so that heavily weighed on my decision to pick up Ursaluna. This Pokemon was heavily hyped up when the Pokemon Home update came out, often being picked up in round 1 or 2, but since then people have been able to play around with it for a little bit, so it's fallen out of favor. Still, this Pokemon is incredibly hard to switch into with its monstrous 140 base attack stat. You don't even need to run Guts Flame Orb on Ursaluna for it to hit hard. It has decent bulk and some very niche abilities that could very well come into play. Our round 4 pick was, in my opinion, the biggest winner of the DLC. Empoleon. Empoleon was always looked as a not so great Pokemon in previous generations, but with the DLC, it finally got access to Roost, regained access to Knockoff, saw its ability change from Defiant to Competitive. Empoleon is such a cool Pokemon, and I'm so excited to use it now with all these buffs. Good Steel types are hard to come by, so I am so happy that we ended up grabbing up Empoleon this early. Now, this is where I actually have to come clean with you guys. The team I am showing you from now is not actually the team that I drafted. See, post-draft, we had 24 hours of grace period, which basically means you can make any changes to your team, first come, first serve sort of basis. And when I looked at the board, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was a new Pokemon introduced in this generation that went undrafted. So I destroyed my entire team to get this monkey in for the content. Our 5th round pick was Monkey Dory. This Pokemon was just introduced, so I really wanted to test it out. It's probably overpriced and maybe it's not even that good, but I wanted to find out for myself. It has a good speed stat, a good special attack stat, 2 good abilities, and a decent move pool with moves like Parting Shot and Nasty Plot and Calm Mind, Stored Power, Trick, just to name a few. So I'm actually very excited to use Monkey Dory. It is round 6 and we are still missing our Fairy type. I had initially gotten Hatterene as it synergized well with Ursaluna because of Trick Room, but since I picked up Monkey Dory, I didn't want to run Triple Psychic. So we picked up Enamorous Therian. Another relatively new Pokemon that hasn't really been explored much in Draft League. It has a very good stat distribution, but it is quite slow. It lacks recovery outside of Draining Kiss, but I think we can put it to some decent use. Next up is our Dragon type, and we picked up Haxorus. Now, Haxorus is a weird Pokemon since it often gets overlooked. I feel like you either love Haxorus or don't really care for Haxorus. Personally, I haven't really used Haxorus, but it has gotten a few interesting buffs over the last couple generations. It gained access to First Impression and Close Combat, which is great. It also hits incredibly hard with its 147 base attack stat, and with Dragon Dance and Scale Shot, it can be a pretty good sweeper. Mold Breaker and Unnerve are also 2 pretty good and niche abilities for Draft League, so it's not the bulkiest dragon type, but it can be an effective breaker or sweeper, so I'm looking forward to it. With points running low, we are still missing a couple of key roles and typings. I wanted to get a good ground switch in, and I spotted Hisuian Decidueye sitting at 6 points. It does have Roost, so it can keep itself healthy. It does have Defog for some hazard control, has Knockoff to disrupt, Haze to stop setup sweepers, a ton of setup options itself, Taunt, Tailwind, and an incredibly unique signature move in Triple Arrows that can crit, lower defense stat, and make the opponent flinch. I am intrigued by this Pokemon. Since our next pick is one of our Terra Captains, now seems like a good time to explain the Terra rules. Though if you followed PPL last season, you would already know. This is a low tier Terra League, meaning only certain Pokemon can Terra. We had a Terra budget of 20 points and each Pokemon had its own individual Terra cost. We could then pick 3 typings. For our Terra Captains, one of them has to be Stab and 2 of our own liking. Our first Terra Captain is Hisuian Typhlosion, and its Terra typings are Ghost, Fairy, and Grass. I saw Nexus put in a decent amount of work with this Pokemon in the PPL last season, so I wanted to try it out. Fire and Ghost are 2 amazing offensive typings, and with the ability to become either a Grass type or a Fairy type, we can often hit a lot of our checks while also removing our own weaknesses. Second to last pick was Spite Ops, just because it gives me sticky webs and more spikes, which is pretty cool for my team, I guess. And then the last Pokemon on our team is the big Titan Pokemon, Cloth. It was only 2 points, so we made it our other Terra Captain. It can become either a Fairy or a Fighting type, which will have different applications, and with the Regenerator ability, this Pokemon might actually be pretty useful. And there we have it, friends. That is our full team. Let me know what you think about our draft. Make sure you are subscribed. Week 1 goes up tomorrow.